Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of Eco Heroes Unplugged. I'm your host for today, Anushka Saikia, and with this episode we are celebrating Aaranyak's 35th anniversary. So today we have with us Mr. Udayan Borthakur. Mr. Borthakur is the founder head of Wildlife Genetics Division and another former division, the Media Production and Communication Division. He is a member of IUCN SSC and also is associated with several government agencies. He is also an award-winning wildlife photographer and a filmmaker. So we are very honored to have you with us today. Sir, I would want to ask, what are the 3 words that immediately comes to your mind when someone says Aaranyak?
Come back home. And thanks for inviting me to this episode. It's really nice to be here.
So in every episode, we always try to bring out that story everyone has, which, inspires someone to be in a career path for so long, for so many years. So what was your story?
Well, if you ask me about my story, how I got associated with wildlife, and that has relation to how I got involved with Aaranyak also. It started in my childhood only, but I'm not going to, go around very long stories. The primary work that I do for Aaranyak is wildlife genetics. You already said. Now, this craze for wildlife and particularly doing DNA work started when I first watched the film Jurassic Park, the first one, not the other episodes, where they found ancient DNA of dinosaurs and they recreated the entire dinosaur. I was interested, in wildlife since my childhood. But then when I saw this kind of technology actually exist, and now that is not a fiction, that is a reality that we can do, I really got interested, not in particularly for DNA work, but about, using technology for, studying wildlife, exploring new things. And eventually I, did my master's in molecular biology, so that was one step closer to, doing all this. But even after doing masters in molecular biology, the first work that I started in my research career was ecological research on birds. And eventually I could get into, doing genetics and all while I was doing my research in wildlife history of India. So I came for a workshop in Aaranyak in early 2007. And that's where we discussed about possibility of initiating conservation genetic work in Northeast India because there was no work previous to that. And then it was decided, okay, one day Aaranyak will start its own conservation genetic laboratory. And I was told if I could, initiate or at least, develop some plans. And we developed it even before I joined Aaranyak. And eventually, in early 2008, I joined Aaranyak and started developing the laboratory. So that was the beginning.
Okay, that's how you came into Aaranyak.
Right.
But you had the division of wildlife genetics, and there have been so many people who are very closely involved. So how were the initial days of establishment of such a division?
Right. So setting up a lab in terms of buying the equipments is easy. As long as you have money, you can buy those things. But to actually put them to use and do actual conservation genetics is where you require experience and expertise. I had that experience in wildlife history of India, and then later I also worked in University of Chicago, so I could bring in more experience. And initially we started with very small projects, small work I would say. So after we got our first project from this laboratory, we started appointing people. Unfortunately, at that time at least, nowhere in India there is a curriculum which teaches population genetics. Even now, there is no dedicated curriculum at any level, graduation, post-graduation, in India that exclusively teaches population genetics. And the conservation genetic work foundation is based on the fundamentals of population genetics. So whoever joined our laboratory, they of course are from science background or biological science background. but they had to be taught from the very beginning about the fundamentals of population genetics. So that was a challenge. So that took some time in building up the manpower and all, because if we want to expand our work, the first criteria that we need trained manpower. And that was a very challenging thing at the initial days. So in fact, when Pranjal Kumar Das joined us in late 2009, so with his joining, that process started. Eventually, there are several people who have come, joined. Now also there are several researchers who are working. But then again, I would emphasize is the main problem here is, to have trained manpower in this field, particularly in this particular region. Yeah.
So you have led several projects related to wildlife genetics. So who are those collaborators you would like to name, like maybe funding agencies or government, related to government agencies?
Right. So we started with research on, greater Amazon rhinos. The first agency that gave us the fund was agency from, New Zealand called Asian Rhino Project. Then eventually International Rhino Foundation gave us a project which actually, gave us the, starting, resources required for standardizing all the, protocols and all related to rhino DNA fingerprinting. And we published that paper and become actually the first paper in the world, on rhino population genetics. At individual level, we can identify rhinos from dung samples, and we can use that data for population monitoring, all those kind of things. Eventually, we got support from many agencies. For long, we have been getting support from US Fish and Wildlife Services, particularly our tiger work, and recently our elephant work also could be, initially conducted because of, support from US Fish and Wildlife Services. Then in India also, we actually did a significant amount of work on tigers, particularly genetic monitoring of tigers, with financial support from the National Tiger Conservation Authority. In fact, in India, we are the first non-government agency to receive funding from NTCA on tiger genetic work. So it was in 2014, 2012, 2014, when we got a grant from NTCA to, estimate tiger population in Namdapha and Pake tiger reserves. So those were the initial donors that we have. Now we have about if I look at the entire 18 years, we'll have 7 to 8 regular donors that have been giving us funding. And beyond that also, for example, right now we have the Habitat Trust, which is partnering with us for a long-term project on Hulok gibbons. And beyond funding also, there are several partners. We have worked in close collaboration with Wildlife History of India. We have worked with Department of Ecology and Evolution, University of Chicago. We have worked with National Center for Biological Sciences. We have published several papers on tiger genetics with NCBS. And then internationally also we had donors, because we have also worked internationally. In Bhutan, we have worked with Royal Society for Protection of Nature on white-bellied heron. In Indonesia, we have collaborated with several agencies, including there is a local agency called IABI who works on Javan and Sumatran rhino protection. There is an agency called Ekman Institute for Molecular Biology. It's a very big institute, but we have helped them in developing their capacity for rhino genetic work. We have worked with WWF US. We have worked with many such agencies actually, yes.
Definitely.
And locally also we have other universities and institutes which are partnering with us from time to time.
Yeah. So Wildlife Genetics Division, of course, has been doing impactful work over the years, and it is the only authorized laboratory in Assam work, and of course Northeast India, which has been working in wildlife forensics. So to achieve that, it might have been a long journey with a lot of challenges at times. So what do you have to say about the setbacks and the challenges?
Yeah. So frankly speaking, I never wanted to get into forensics. Because when I worked in Wildlife History of India, I worked in their forensic lab. Even though my topic was not forensics, it was tiger genetics, but I did work on several, cases related to wildlife crime. And I have seen how my supervisor used to, run from courtroom to courtroom, and I never wanted to get into all those hassle. But then in our laboratory, when we initially developed and published all these protocols, all these methods for, say, rhino individual identification on tigers and various species identification, all those things, eventually the requests started coming from the government agencies like forest department and all, and they would send us sample initially saying like, okay, we have got this meat sample, kindly identify through DNA analysis whether it belongs to wildlife or it is some domestic meat. So initially we did it in a very informal way, even though we get proper reports. But only once you want to do it formally, or rather to say in crime investigation, there is a very important term called chain of custody. If your report needs to be produced in the court, then you need to maintain proper chain of custody. So that has to be done from the beginning of sample collection till it comes to the lab and till the report goes out of the lab. Initially, we were quite reluctant to get into all that process, but eventually we started developing protocols and started maintaining all those protocols. And since in 2024, the PCCF and Chief Wildlife Warden of Assam authorized us to provide services related to wildlife genetics and wildlife forensics. That was the time when CRPC was in place. CRPC, the act. But under CRPC, there was no such specific provision, to the best of our knowledge, which could actually notify our lab as a authorized facility. Now, when BNSS came into act in 2023, there's a specific provision under BNSS where central or state government can notify laboratories as well as experts. So once then that came into practice, we had a very good terms with Assam Forest Department and Assam Police, whom we have been since 2014, we have given our support for about 135, wildlife crime cases. It's a big number, when you look at a small lab like us. And our, strong point was that we used to give report very fast. I would name it, but many other agencies where they used to send sample in India, they will sometimes take even 1.5 years. See, if you need the forensic evidence before filing the charge sheet. If we do not give the report within 90 days, probably a criminal will never be convicted, and that's the main issue with wildlife crime. The conviction rate is so low. So our effort was always to give report in time. And so we have built up a rapport with Assam Forest Department and Assam Police. We used to receive appreciation letters. So when BNSS came into act, the Assam government themselves took the initiative to notify the lab, and just few days back we got the copy of the notification. So we have been notified under section 329(4) of BNSS 2023, and not only our laboratory is actually notified as a facility, but also I'm notified as an individual government expert for wildlife crime investigation through forensics. So I would say this is a landmark achievement for Aaranyak, I would say, and we really look forward to now working very closely with all these government agencies and try to increase the rate of conviction.
So would you like to name few of the facilities that you have in the lab so that people are aware
so,
of?
See, facility-wise, we are not an example that can be set in a sense. We are still in a very temporary facility. We hope that very soon we will go to a permanent facility and have a much bigger lab. But then as of now, see, in doing this kind of work, particularly forensics and working with low quality fecal samples, you need to physically separate your facilities from one another. Like places where you do high molecular weight work or molecular work, or I would say high quality DNA work, they need to separate from forensic facility because there are chances of contamination. So in our laboratory, our first fundamental approach is to separate these facilities. So in one room, we do our low molecular quality work or low DNA quality work, and one in high molecular quality work. So that is our physical facility we have. Then within those facilities, we have our facility for DNA extraction, sample processing, because sample needs to be processed well before doing DNA extraction. So once you do the DNA extraction, then it goes to the next molecular level, which is like called polymerase chain reaction or PCR facility. And then once the PCR is done, then we do DNA sequencing or various electrophoresis, those kind of facilities. Eventually, you need a facility and expertise for data analysis and interpretation. So these are the basic molecular facilities that we have. And recently, like last year, we have added a new facility, is an enzyme immunoassay facility, through which we are trying to evaluate stress in various wildlife species through fecal stress hormone analysis. So this is a new work that we have started recently. Yeah.
So wildlife, it's a very glamorous field. I mean, people think so.
Right.
So, but it requires a lot of vigorous field work and effort. So, do you have any such stories that you would like to share
Lots
about field work?
Yeah. So I have been, as I said, after my master's, I have been working in the field of wildlife since 2003. So it's been 22 years, and I worked in different parts of India as well as outside. Now, again, when someone hears that I'm from the field of genetics, it's ideally labeled as a lab biologist. But wildlife genetics, or it is commonly known as molecular ecology, is a field where you not only require laboratory expertise, you also require expertise on wildlife, their ecology, their population history, overall natural history. You need to know, then only you can interpret genetic data in terms of those populations. So field experience is a very integral part of someone developing himself or herself as a wildlife geneticist. And that's what I try to convey to all my researchers, that don't remain yourself confined to the chapters of genetics or the lab work. You need to know about wildlife. You need to understand their behavior, all those things. So that has been my pursuit. So I never miss a chance to be in the field. And there are many such instances. I don't know where to start. But if you want to hear about very I mean again, I'm stuck in a sense. Okay, one exciting moment I would say. So at that time I was working with BNHS, Bombay Natural History Society. I was working in a place called Kalesar National Park, which is at the Haryana-Himachal border. So I was doing field work. I was working on owls basically at that time. And owls mean you need to work at night also. So I had an old jeep and my field assistant. So one day our jeep got stuck way inside the forest. So we had to come back. And there's absolute darkness. Our torchlight stopped working. Anything that could go wrong, went wrong basically. And my field, he had something in his hand. I don't know what he had. So after some time, he just hit something on the road. He said, "साहब जी ये कुछ soft कुछ है." तो I still had a mobile, वो पुराना वाला mobile, उसमें torch होता है, लेकिन torch देखा, there was a leopard on the road. There was a leopard on the road, and a leopard was, I don't know, leopards can see in the dark, but I don't know how he managed to kick that leopard. And leopard was equally surprised, we were equally surprised. Leopard also ran away, we also ran away. So that was my first very crazy instance in wildlife. After joining Aaranyak, I have worked in many places in Northeast. There are many crazy instances, but my most memorable trips are from Namdapha, where I, at a stretch, I stayed inside the forest for 21 days. In Dampa, we did several tiger surveys, and always by camping inside Nampa. So it was, a fantastic experience. And those are the memories I can never, forget.
Okay. So you said about the recognition that your division got from the Assam state government. So what are your plans in future? How you are going to take it forward?
Yeah, so it's not the division, it's a lab. So lab is a part of, I know the division. Lab is a facility under division or Aaranyak per se. And division is the administrative unit that, executes
True.
different wildlife genetic related plans from on behalf of Aaranyak. So yes, it comes with big responsibility, I would say, because now, now also we have been receiving a lot of, case request, like, forensic analysis request. But now, since it has been, notified under an act, our reports cannot be, questioned at any level of, legal procedure now. So my main, our first, objective now is to offer, I would say, worker service to different government agencies, like Forest Department, police, and other, law enforcement agencies, like Wildlife Crime Control Bureau is there, so that they have a good understanding of what are the services that we can offer and what are the applications of, genetic technology or DNA technology in case of, wildlife crime investigation. So one thing is to have a clear idea of what services we can offer. Second, offer those services, also facilitate their capacity building in understanding the prerequisites to avail those services. And third, also provide incidents response. Like, for example, we might also assist the law enforcement agencies in crime scene investigation, collecting DNA evidences. So all those kind of things. So for that, actually, we are, very near to publish something called service and sample collection, book or guideline. Once we publish that, of course, that can be a guidebook for the law enforcement agencies in understanding what are the, what are the technology that they can use for such investigation, how they can collect samples, how they need to maintain, chain of custody and, submit the samples, and what they can, expect in result from us. I'll give you a very simple example. Like, many people don't know that one of the things that we cannot, prove with DNA technology is age. Like, if there's a victim, we cannot determine victim's age from DNA work. There are very high technology, but at least the technology which is present in our laboratories, not only in laboratories surrounding us, we cannot prove DNA, age by DNA. So we earlier had request, like, for example, there is a, say, tiger sample. Also, like, request was like, identify whether it is a tiger or not, identify its age. So in many cases, there are actually a bit of ignorance in knowing what DNA technology can do. So that's why training and consultation is one of our mandate in this regard. So this is the main plan. And second, of course, is to develop the laboratory further. As I said, it's still in a temporary facility. So we are looking forward to develop the laboratory further within Guwahati and create it as a world-class center of excellence for conservation genetics and forensics.
Yeah.
So then that is the goal now.
So people today are aware of wildlife genetics, no doubt, but sometimes they lack that understanding of how to link wildlife genetics to, species conservation or wildlife conservation in general. So what would you have to say on that?
Yeah. So whenever we discuss with protected area managers, because see, one aspect is academic research that we need to undertake. Say, for example, when we wanted to, I'll just give you a background, I'll come to that answer. When we want to start rhino work, the first prerequisite was to have a set of genetic markers that can be used for identifying individual rhinos from their dung samples. That was not earlier published. It looked like a very academic exercise. It may not have any meaning from the point of view of a protected area manager. But once we have developed and standardized that technology has become very essential, both in rhino forensics as well as rhino, genetic monitoring of populations. So I'm coming with this example. So once we did that, we could immediately give our input to rhino forensic investigations. And I'll start with the application of wildlife genetics in forensics. I will start it with a very classic example of a case that we did. In 2017, there was a road accident in Baihata Sariali, where all the passengers of that particular Tata Sumo were killed in that accident. But police found a very fresh rhino horn in that. Blood was like dripping. Orang is close to that. So everyone thought the rhino might have been poached in Orang. So there began a search for a rhino carcass in Orang. The sample came to us. But by then, we have worked in all the rhino-bearing protected areas of Eastern India, including West Bengal and Assam. So we had a geographic database of rhinos, genetic database of rhinos. When the sample came to us, it came to us with the intent that now we will keep the DNA profile ready so that when the carcass is found, we'll be able to match it with the carcass and prove that, okay, this horn has come from this scene of crime. But when it came to us, we did the DNA profiling. So I told my lab guys that, okay, before the carcass sample comes, let's do one thing. Let's run a search on the existing database that we have, rhinos. Now, when you search an existing database, it need not be a perfect individual match, but rhinos, because they are, they are in a fragmented landscape, there is no recent genetic exchange between different populations, they develop different genetic signatures. So there are ways of catching the genetic signature and predict that this rhino might have come from this population. Once we run that analysis for that particular horn sample, our analysis suggested that this should come from West Bengal, particularly Gorumara. So we alerted the authority. After a week or so, they then found the carcass in Gorumara. It was a perfect match. Okay, so that's how we could not only prove the scene of crime, but also could relieve the stress from one protected area and could direct the search toward the right area. So that is the power of genetics.
True.
In forensics, we do many things, but this is one classic case which probably was so convincing to the protected area managers that yes, genetics should be used for such investigations. So one thing. Second, see, genetics, when we use for population monitoring, like, okay, for wildlife population monitoring, there are different tools. There are ecological tools, like people do camera trapping, people look at, wildlife signages. So those are also techniques. Similarly, genetics or DNA or technology also offer such techniques. It is up to how these techniques are used for wildlife research, that matters. Now, the gap was for the managers. Now the managers understand very well now, but I'm talking about like 20 years back when we started, or I started my career in wildlife genetics. There's a gap in understanding of how the genetic technology or DNA technology can be used for wildlife monitoring, how that can be used for taking decisions related to population management in the protected areas. So it took some time. It is not my individual contribution, but it is contribution of the community that studies conservation genetics. Now even the PA managers understand what is the power of DNA technology, and that technology can be used for various applications, not only academic research but also hardcore protected area or wildlife management aspects. That's what I would say.
It's really incredible. Yeah. So we would really want to know a few personal questions now. Yeah. So you are a man with so many passions. So you have passion of photography, mostly wildlife photography. Then you also have a good fitness routine, as we can already see. So what would you have to say on that? How do you keep all this passion in sync with a job that requires so much of field work and lab work?
So I don't do everything simultaneously. At certain point of my life, I make one of these aspects my priority. Okay, maybe 2 years back, photography was my priority. I'm still doing photography, but I have seen that is my personal experience. When I keep one thing a priority, other things, the priority to other things go down a bit. It's quite natural, I saw, because we are human. But then, yeah, I do have certain things, like actually my first passion was sports. When I was in school, I used to do martial arts. Then I got interested in weightlifting. I represented my state, 3 times in, nationals. That was one time before I came, fully into wildlife. Once I came into wildlife, probably in my graduation days, then slowly my interest towards wildlife and eventually photography increased. Initially, money was a limitation, like buying gears and all. Once I could overcome that also, then photography became a full-time passion, and it almost turned into a kind of a profession at one point of time. In a sense, I could also do certain professional assignments and all. Now fitness has become a discipline. Now, of course, it's not, you cannot keep things up with motivation, as it is said. It has become like a discipline. And now I like, for example, if I go to the gym, it is more for my mental clarity and mental well-being than probably my physical well-being. I think this balance is very important in life, that physical, mental balance. Very surprisingly, gym gives me that mental balance to meet other, physical demands in life.
True.
I mean, I don't know whether I could convey clearly, but that's what I feel.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So apart from that, since you have a family, so how difficult it is at times to balance that work and family, personal relationships, because wildlife conservation is such a field where you need to do a lot of travel as well. So
I feel there's no balance. In a sense, everything is mixed up. My passion, my interest, my identity is something that my family lives with. They understand the challenges. And as a human being, I sometimes also cannot, differentiate these two. Sometimes I try to switch my professional being when I go inside my home, but sometimes it is not possible. So they also understand that, and I also understand that sometimes I need to keep my worries, other anxieties from the professional field aside and give them time. Yeah, this is kind of a constant tussle, I would say. I don't know whether I've been able to balance it out, but yeah, I tried.
juggle it up together.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you now meet your younger self, so were there things that you would have done differently to shape your professional journey, be it through in academics, be it personal experiences? So what would you have done differently?
I would have kept wildlife as a passion and choose a career, some other career. It might be very sound strange in this podcast, but what I feel that sometimes, your passion drives a lot when are choosing a career. Sometimes I feel that if you really are passionate about something, and if you do not want it to be polluted by other challenges, keep it exclusively as a passion.
True.
I mean, that's what sometimes I feel. I mean, it's not like I'm regretting my professional decisions. Absolutely no. I mean, I'm doing something, and I come back to Northeast to do something that I always wanted, and I'll continue doing it. But if I could go back in a time machine, as you were said, that is not an option, we all know.
Yeah.
I would probably suggest my younger self, think twice before what you are planning to do.
So what message do you have for the younger generations, who has to join this field?
Yeah. So, see, no matter whatever you do it with absolute professionalism. And, as I said, to meet your passion, you don't need to develop a passion, develop it into a profession. You can always be passionate about something and keep doing it, without tying it into a profession also. That's all.
Yeah, so we are wrapping up the session with one more last question. So how do you envision Aaranyak in the future? if I may ask?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is something that has been a topic of brainstorm for all the people in Aaranyak, because I feel we are at a very critical juncture now. Like, we started as a nature club, of course, much before people like me joined. Eventually, we turned ourselves into a full-fledged, even though non-government institute, but we started acting more like an institution, not only research but also conservation activities. I think now it is high time that within the greater umbrella of Aaranyak as a society, we seriously start developing an institution. It might be a very different model to other research institutions, because we not only work on research, but we also do a lot of action-oriented work. We do a lot of ground conservation work. So I think, that's what has been the effort, and that's what we should look forward in like next 5 or 10 years, that we should have a particular institution. And also there can be different center for excellences under the same institution. Like, we have so many facilities, like physical facilities, like we have the lab, we have GIS lab, all those facilities. We have a ecology lab. So I think those can be developed into different centers, and that's what I really hope that within our lifetime, or within our working lifetime, we'll be able to see and implement. Yeah.
Thank you. So we really had an insightful conversation today. And thank you to our listeners for being with us and listening to this podcast, Eco Heroes Unplugged, and stay connected to nature. Thank you so much.